What's up? It is the Friday news dump. I don't know why Tambo's shaking his head. Maybe he's just regretting things right now. We got Crane as well. Hold it with you. What we're going to do is run down all of the injury news, just like we did last week. We're going to give you some great insight on how that's going to affect players and your lineup. And I'm just going to read off some of the names we're going to talk about today. Alvin Kamara, T. Higgins, J.K. Dobbins, Kittle, Lazard, Evans, Julio, Pittman. I don't think we got to worry about DeAndre Swift. I think Swift's going to be just fine, but keep an eye out for that. But Tambo, this helped a lot last week, and it's going to help a lot again this week. So much going on, though. I'm just going to dive right into it. Screw it. Kamara is questionable. He's got the rib issue. He missed Thursday and Friday practices. Not good. Mark Ingram is questionable, but he did practice 3 times this week. Tony Jones is the other guy. I got to think that either Kamara or Ingram plays. And let's just say Kamara's out. What does that do for Ingram this week?
Yeah, I think what you said was perfect there. Forget Tony Jones. I'm leaving that off. There's just too many options this week. Yeah. If you wanted to play Ingram, that would be where you go. The limited practices don't scare me at all with him. I know some people are like, isn't he questionable too? That's just standard stuff for a guy like him. Kamara, though, truly worrisome. Looks like he'll be out. When you miss Friday, it's usually not a good thing. We'll see and wait on the update, but I actually don't have any interest there. I am going to move it all to the passing game. I already like the passing game. We've got Jawan Johnson at $2,500. We've got Michael Thomas, who came back to life last week, which was nice. I know Crane is going to hop in a minute with Olave takes because they're not going away all season long. And then Jameis, they should be down. I like Fournette on the other side of that game. I think you just ignore it and move on. And even if Kamara plays, one thing I learned last week, and the hard way, I should say, because I really liked him on Sunday morning, was that Taysom Hill is still a thing. Throwing short passes are still not a thing for Jameis Winston. So it's just the worst absolute setup you could ever ask for anyway. So it's an avoid for me, but I know Crane will have other ideas with Olave there.
Yeah, I'm going right back to Olave. He's going to be on some Millie Maker winning lineups this year. They're just guys that they're going to screw you a lot of the time, and then every now and then they're just going to pop off. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I think, is another one of those guys. But Olave is somebody that I'm going to keep playing, and he's still cheap at 4.5K. And he didn't totally brick last week. He got a little over 9 points. A lot of it came later in the game, but still, he didn't totally brick. He's going to see targets. I'm glad to hear that you're just kind of ignoring this running back situation because I'm doing the same thing. And Mark Ingram, look, if he was priced down at 4.3, 4.4, something like that, I would have some interest, but he's all the way up at 5.7. And when I kind of looked at this situation, I go, I bet I'll play a little Ingram. 5.7. Nope. I'm just not interested at the price tag. So I don't know, Hold'em. I'm kind of with Tambo here. I'm playing the passing game. I'm kind of ignoring these running backs. And Michael Thomas, man, I was dead wrong on him last week because he's 5'8" this week. He got a lot of red zone looks. He didn't crush it as far as catch or yards go, but he's somebody that you're just going to have to consider because they're obviously going to look his way in the red zone.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's going to be tough passing up a guaranteed 20-plus touches on Ingram. But the matchup's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, the matchup's tough. He's just going to be running into a rough defense.
So you're completely off Ingram if it's
I'm off of him, man.
And what you said too, the guaranteed 20 touches, nothing's guaranteed in this league. Not that you meant it that way. I'm just saying in general, nothing's guaranteed. And on top of what we just said, it could still be Taysom. It could be through the air. There's just so many things that take away and hurt it. And it's not like he's 4,000 to Crane's point, where it was let's just plug and play. Plus the matchup, plus the likeliest game flow here. We'll see. There is some injury stuff on the Tampa Bay side that could make it more interesting. It is opposite running back to a probably popular option in Leonard Fournette by the current looks of things. But just a note there, like I said, is not something I'm very interested in at all as of right now.
All right, guys, I'm going to go to you first here, Crane.
Okay.
Do we really want to mess with the Seattle running back situation?
I was looking at him like, oh my God, you're going to go to me first on Kenneth Walker because that's going to go quick. That's going to go quick, Penny. Buddy. Okay, here.
Penny and Walker dead to us.
Why? Right? Why are you even going to mess with that?
Yeah, they're dead.
Yeah, that's just kind of one of those situations that I'm not even. I like when stuff like this happens because I just get to write them off. I'm a big fan of just being able to exclude players from my player pool, and that's what I want to do with Kenneth Walker and Rashard Penny. I'm not messing with them. This Seattle offense all year, I'm not going to be messing with. So this is an easy cross off, especially in this matchup with San Fran.
Tambo full fade.
Yeah, and I'll use this time instead because I'll just say quotations to whatever Crane just said. I love that call. But back to make it happen in the chat, brought up a good point too. And I do like this. I talked about it earlier today and forgot about it right now, is Tampa Bay defense. We're going up against Jameis Winston here. We already talked about this. And now if they're down Kamara on top of it, like that's another good spot where people are playing Fournette, but maybe they weren't going to play it with the defense because the defense is a little bit priced up. It's not the cheapest one or in the $2,300 range. So maybe people aren't wanting to go there. And that's a way you can take an already chalk piece in Fournette and bring down the product ownership a little bit by putting something low owned like their defense in with it and still correlate.
All right, let's give us a little like here, whether you're watching live or on tape. We'd appreciate that. Helmet tells me there's an algorithm and it makes us richer when you do that. So I'll come right back to you. Crane, maybe I can get you on this one. J.K.
Okay.
Dobbins.
Yeah.
Dobbins said we'll see if he's playing. Really, can you just break down that backfield there if Dobbins does or doesn't play? Both sides.
I need to. Did anybody hear how he said "we'll see"? Was it like "we'll see," or was it?
I'll tell you how it was. He goes, "We'll see."
The beat writers noted that he did smirk when he said it, so it does look like I think he plays.
Okay, I hope he's out, because if he's out, I'm going right back to this passing game. Lamar Jackson had the quietest 3-touchdown game he's ever going to have last week, and I think that's almost his floor if Dobbins misses this game, because he didn't run much last week. I think we see more rushing this week. He was throwing the ball deep, and this is a game, and I know we're going to talk about the Baltimore secondary later, but all those dudes are missing. They're missing their top 4 cornerbacks. Like, this game very easily could shoot out. Lamar's going to get some ownership, but at 7-4, the ownership can't be too high. I love it, especially if Dobbins misses, because then I know right where to go with Baltimore. You play
he's playing, Crane.
I do too, but a kid can dream, can he?
You can, but Dobbins is just off the list against.
Okay. So even if he plays, I think Lamar is still fine, because if this game shoots out, it's not like they're going to be handing the ball off to J.K. Dobbins 25 times. Like, this is still Lamar's offense. Like, Tambo, aren't you on the passing game here?
Oh, yeah, both sides, actually. And it's just the way you can set it up. I think, one, Tyreek did not break out last week by any means, but he got a few shots. He got like 4 downfield shots. I think he's perfect on the other side. You've got Lamar set up quite well here. And the other thing about just general slate strategy and how to apply this here is, again, another running game I just want to forget, because like I said, if anyone is the running back, it's Lamar. Maybe not, though. I know Holden's going to talk about the popcorn and milkshakes. I don't disagree. I saw those pictures.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but he is kind of.
Well, I will say this. You brought the point up. I heard you mention it a couple times, and I agree with you. You saw it. It's more of a joke because of the contract thing, but also even last week, that was not what you would expect to see against the Jets defense. I thought you would have saw him run it a bunch more, go earn this contract, talk about how I'm not going to talk about it during the season. I'm just going to go make it happen. He played a different game, and it did not look that way. I'm still not interested in the running game, but I was going to say everyone's playing cheap tight ends this week. There's so many out there that if you just went Lamar, Andrews, and Tyreek, or Waddle, or the other way you could go is Tua, Tyreek, if you needed to save more money, and still run it back with Andrews, you're going to a more expensive tight end when most are on a cheaper one. You're naturally getting different and still having money to spend while building more like a balanced lineup that way. So I don't hate that either.
All right, I want to ask you something, Tambo. Is there, because I kind of developed this theory over the last week, is Lamar scared to run because he wants to get paid?
I think that's overblown. That's what I was trying to say. I think it could be an overreaction. There's merit to the thought process of that. But to me, like I said, if you think about this guy and what he's capable of, I think it just ended up on the wrong side. And that's the natural first thing we're going to go to. Again, early in the season, this is only heading in to week 2. But all these narratives from week 1 were very overblown. Like Baker Mayfield revenge, must win. He didn't. Like all these things get pushed to the next level. I think this is a 1-game thing, and we could see Lamar go off this game on the ground, and it just could be the way it is.
All right, so he's not fat, you don't think?
I don't think it matters, because I forget who said it. It might have been you, Holden. I was listening to the old guys pod, the old Wishbone, give it a plug here, and someone said that it looks like he's bulking up, and it does not look like muscle. And I like that line, but at the same time, I don't think it matters. His athleticism already. So what? If you take his athleticism down a slight notch, it still crushes 99% of the NFL. So I think he's still fast enough to make it happen. And I think we might see it this Sunday. It could surprise some.
Said this, I've probably been to a zillion press conferences. I've never seen a guy drink a milkshake up there. Not a professional athlete. Maybe a manager drinking some swill, but that was That was something else, man. Let's get into our next one. Like button would be great. Najee Harris, Tambo, real quick. He's a full go against the Patriots. I'm a little hesitant because of this foot issue, and I watched the game last week, and he got up, and he didn't look as explosive. Is there any reason to go to Najee Harris this week?
Man, honestly, it sounds crazy, but he'd be the one out of all the ones we talked about so far if I did play one, but I still don't think I'll get there. I don't have interest in that situation. Anything to do foot, heel, ankle, leg, Achilles, any of that stuff always worries me. I know you're the same on that stuff, Holden. So for me, no interest there, and not really big interest in that game as a whole, to be honest. So, just that's why I think there's much better spots we can get to on this slate. And there's so many running back options that you can use this week, mid-tier, upper tier, where people are maybe avoiding it a little bit this week, all kinds of options. So just no interest at all for me.
Yeah, and I look at Najee Harris at 6.2K. Like, I don't want to do that in this game. Like, it's one of the lowest total games on the slate. I don't particularly like ever playing Najee Harris. Like, sometimes it burns me. Usually it doesn't. And now he's coming back from the injury. I'm just not messing with it. There are better spots on this slate.
Well, let's go to the wide receiver then. I'm going to ask you if the Colts are a nice spot on the slate. Frank Wright said Pittman. Michael Pittman has that quad. He's questionable. Alec Pierce will not play. He's got a concussion. So if Pittman plays, there's more volume. But what if Pittman misses this one, Crane?
I mean, then we're looking at Paris Campbell, and at 3.7, he provides some much-needed salary relief. These other guys, I don't know if I want to mess with. I'll tell you one guy I don't hate, though, if you want a very, very deep tournament play, if Michael Pittman's out, and that's Nyheim Hines. He's 5'3". Nobody's going to play him at that price. And would it shock you if he was more involved in the passing game here? Because it wouldn't shock me at all. Everybody's going to play Jonathan Taylor, rightfully so. He is the best fantasy running back outside of Christian McCaffrey, maybe better than Christian McCaffrey in the league. If you want to play some Nyheim Hines this week, if Pittman's out, I wouldn't argue with you. I don't think that's a crazy thing this week.
Okay. It's finally, I mean, it took us a show and a quarter, but you finally made a good point. Tambo, you're up next, my friend.
Yeah, he took a little bit of my thunder there. That's what I was going to say. I know it's going
to Hey, there we go. We're on the same team, baby.
Yeah. Well, by the way, this is a good spot to chime in and drop it in. I had to bring it up, Crane. You knew this was going to happen. I said, save it for the show. Remember last week when you laughed at Holden and I about Gerald Everett for the week one game?
Gerald just freaking killed me.
Kyle Pitts too. He loved Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I love Kyle Pitts, but at least who is the running back?
Pierce. Damian Pierce.
You guys were just freaking slobbing all over. Yeah, my God.
But I know we all make bad calls. I just thought I'd bring that one up. But you did steal my thunder. I like that call. I think, like you said, naturally Paris Campbell is going to get popular, especially if Pittman's ruled out. But even right now with Holden's boy from last week, Alec Pierce, he is ruled out. So there's already a guy down. And, there's talk of connection with Doolin there for Matt Ryan. Maybe he goes to him a little bit. I think Ashton or Ashley, I can't remember his first name, but he's 3,200 on this slate. So maybe he goes there some. But I do like your call on using Hines because Jonathan Taylor is 9,900. Hines is 5,300. So it's a spot you could go, especially if you think that's more of the game flow. And I don't mind this game at all, actually, with the other side, like getting a little back and forth going, even if it's just a Trevor Lawrence, one pass catcher, and then run it back. Well, it'd be nice to get Jonathan Taylor in there and hope that he does his thing again and then have Trevor Lawrence and the guys on the way back. But if you need the savings, you could drop it down and just hope he puts up a more competitive game and you've got Hines on the other side. And then you can fill it out with whatever expensive chalk you want because it doesn't matter. No one's going to have Lawrence, Hines, and a pass catcher for Lawrence. So I just don't see it happening. Zay Jones or something like that.
Here I thought I was the only one on Trevor Lawrence.
No, not this week.
All right. I mean, he's like, there are enough cheap quarterbacks out there that I thought he would kind of fall by the wayside. And you know exactly who to pair him with. You play with Christian Kirk. It's going to
get spaced out anyway. Kirk is good. Zay Jones actually has some good numbers and metrics to go off the one setup there last week. But I'll just say, like you said, it gets spaced out anyway. So when I'm building, I'm just going to build it accordingly. And like you said, if you can't get to Jonathan Taylor and you want to run back and you don't want to play Campbell or Doolin or something like that, you could use Hines. No problem. It makes perfect sense.
All right, boys. And that's a game the Colts, they basically got to win. They don't have to. We're in week 2, but you got to get a win in this.
No clue how that game tied last week, by the way. That was just insane.
I do. The fucking Texans were better, and then Lovey decided not to play for the tie. I mean, it was fascinating. It was absolutely
It was the weirdest thing. I was watching Red Zone. They showed none of that game on Red Zone. I'm sitting here trying to freaking refresh ESPN.com. Like, what the hell is happening in this game? And there's like 3 minutes to go in the game. I'm like, I haven't seen even a second of overtime. This is the craziest thing.
I'm installing more TVs as we speak so that I can have it, so I can actually have them
Look at
up.
that Tambo energy right there. Man, oh man, more TV.
It's nuts though. Like they just don't show it for whatever reason. Like you said, just I know it's boring and it's not what everybody wants, but when it's all based on fantasy, like let's get to it. Let's have more options. So I'm going after it that way.
Yeah. T. Higgins is playing. I just want to throw that out there. We don't need to break it down. Question as to whether he passed concussion protocol. But the Bucs have a lot of issues, Crane. Godwin is out. Now, the good news is Julio returned to practice. He's got a knee, but he fell on the ground, so I'm surprised it's not shattered. Mike Evans has issues, and Russell Gage returned to practice. So at least the good news looks like Julio and Evans will play. Gage will likely play. Godwin is out. But you've got one offensive tackle questionable and another that is doubtful. There's a lot of injuries offensively for the Bucs. I like the Saints +3 at home this week from a betting side. What do you think about this team from an offensive side in Tampa Bay?
Well, it looks like they're down to +2.5, so you might not like them quite as much. But
I wouldn't bet it now, no.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like you never know who's going to play for this Bucs team. I like Julio this week at 5.5. Like, there are always going to be these receivers in this mid-range. Mike Evans, like, the Marshawn Lattimore thing does concern me, like, because Lattimore just absolutely owns Evans. But I think you can play either of these guys. I prefer Julio here. I'm not messing with the Gages or the Perrimans of the world. I don't think I need to go that deep on this slate. Tam, but what are you doing with this spot? Like, do you like Julio? Do you like Evans? Like, which of these guys do you prefer? Is it just kind of you multi-enter and roll the dice a little bit?
Yeah, you have to do it that way. I think one thing I will say just to add to it is, I talked about Fournette earlier, but to stick it into this range of what we're talking about now is people don't ever do this for whatever reason. I won some good money with it last year, but you can stack Brady, Fournette, and a receiver. So if the Lattimore thing bothers you, which probably should, it seems pretty legit. You could another way to get different with that Fournette chalk is to play Brady with Fournette and then pick between. I lean Julio over Gage like you, but you could do that or get the tight end in there, whatever you want to do to make it different within this stack. And then you could run it back with your guy Olave.
With Chris Olave, baby.
Yes. Or you could get Juwan Johnson in there for $2,500 at tight end and get a cheap option. But
you just love Juwan Johnson, don't you? You love Juwan Johnson.
I like cheaper tight ends that I think actually, might be fine. I don't know. We'll see what his ownership comes in.
I got one for you, Tambo.
He's super popular. I don't love him. Go ahead. Yeah.
We'll get to tight end in a little bit. I got a nice cheapie for you, okay? You'll be happy with that one. But as far as that goes, Tambo, just Tampa Bay, you're thinking a little Brady, Fournette?
Yeah, I want some Brady because, like I said, at the same time, you're going to play in that game. I think it's a good spot to attack. So I'm fine with it. And the fact that these guys have the Q tags with them all week and the questionable matchups, like I almost always ignore that. So it's like I don't love the idea of it. Like I said, Lattimore thing seems legit, but I never go with it. The sample sizes are always old, small, ridiculous. Like it just gets crazy in some cases, and I just don't care. And we see guys get burned all the time. One game sample that we're going to be playing this weekend, so I don't care.
All right, shout out to the chat. What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. Hit the like button, support us, and we're going to get right back into this. Can I interest you in Greg Dortch, Mr. Tam? Well, all right, Crane, we'll go ahead.
I don't think.
Hold on.
I mean,
Isabella's out.
Yeah.
Rondell Moore is now on the inactive list.
Yep.
So who the hell is Kyler Murray going to throw to, Crane?
Marquise Brown only saw 6 targets, which was really surprising last week because, again, we talked about it on this show. Where the hell else was he supposed to go? Zach Ertz is back there, but Greg Dortch saw 9 targets. And I think it doesn't feel a little chasey. Yeah, a little bit, but at 3.5K, he doesn't have to smash it to get there for us. Like, it feels a little more cash play-ish. Like, I mean, I don't know, like in tournaments, Tambo, are you going with Dortch? Because I'm a little bit iffy, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so here's the deal with this situation, because what the start of the week or whatever you want to call it, getting into week 2 stuff for me, I did not want to play Kyler. I just, not because of last week's game. I was never big on Kyler anyway, because it's hard to stack up. We talk about this, it's always harder to stack Kyler. But in this situation, just like last week, if you got Dortch, everyone's going to play him across from their Vegas stacks.
Yeah.
Carr, Devontae Adams, Dortch, done. Like you see that, or Waller, or Renfro, or whatever. I don't really want to play Dortch as a one-off. He's going to be way too popular. So the only way I think I would use in cash, if you're playing it, sure, obviously that price, but there's going to be so many other cheaper wide receivers you could use. And the way I would use them in tournaments, large field, would be to go Kyler, Marquise Brown, get him because last week he failed, so get some flop leg there.
Yep.
Get Dortch and run it back with Adams. And now you've got Adams chalky. Adams going to be a little bit chalk. So you got Adams chalk lineups with another piece in Dortch, but you've built it differently to push some leverage in there with it. And you actually save a little bit of money doing that on like the Dortch and the Marquise Brown side versus some of the other stuff. So I'm okay doing that if you wanted to enlarge field stuff, but not something I'm super high on. And I'm not going to use them as a one-off. Secondary stack, something like that, maybe, but not by himself, one-off.
If you're playing cash, you need to play him.
For sure.
Like cash, you absolutely play him.
And that ownership is going to leak into tournaments.
Yeah.
So then if you're using them in tournaments, you need to use them accordingly. That's what I try and talk about all the time, where people say, if he's 15%, it's an auto fade, I'm not playing him, or you can't match the field, or you can't do this, you can't do that. But my point would be, I wouldn't play him as a one-off in 15% of my lineups, because that's what the bad part of the 15% of the field is doing. If you build them into 10% of your lineups and they're all Kyler stacks or something unique about your lineups, that's a different way of doing it, where you're not really against the field number the same way. You're more aggressive on a leveraged Dortch lineup. So I'd rather do that.
All right, boys, we got another one to get to. Actually, 3 more wide receivers. Van Jefferson's out, so you guys with the Rams, you know what you're doing. Can I interest either one of you in Allen Robinson at low ownership?
I'm interested. Yeah.
I'm not even seeing the ownership that low.
I was just going to say, it's not going to be the lower ownership, but it's going to be because Kupp is so expensive. People can find their way to Robinson, and there's some stats surrounding it. But I think it's just one of those situations, Crane. You got to just look at it like, again, there's so many ways to build it different. And you also have to remember too, no matter what people say, ownership this, or, oh, it's actually creeping up, or I saw some late steam, or all this shit. It's like Henderson is getting ownership. No matter what you want to say this week, Henderson is getting ownership at the running back position against Atlanta at home, 10.5-point favorites. So they can't all be owned. And so even if Robinson does get some ownership, there's ways to, again, build it. You could put him and Higbee together with Stafford and run it back. Like, you can do a bunch of different stuff with that. So I'm definitely playing him.
Darrell Henderson ownership, is it good or bad? Is it good chalk or bad chalk?
Probably bad.
Okay. It probably is bad, and I'm also probably playing him.
All right, let's move on to the next one then, guys, with the Broncos. KJ Hamler's out. You're going, KJ Hamler, who gives a damn? Well, I think that brings Albert O into the equation. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, obviously, maybe a little bit more of a bump. You got to wonder if the Broncos are going to throw that much Crane if they can get up against the Texans. But, boy, what a debacle that week 1 was. So any interest in the Broncos offense, and what do you think of Hamler being out?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely have interest in they have to showcase Russ here, right? Like, they have to say, look, I know we screwed up last week. We're going to let Russ cook. And now we get to do it versus a team that's not even a threat to really beat us. It would not surprise me at all if the coaching staff went out there and said, we're going to let Russell Wilson ball out in this game. And with Hamler out, the receiving tree is just a little bit more narrow. I like Sutton. I like Jeudy. We saw Jeudy get the downfield looks last week. So he's going to be who I'm going to be going with at 5-6 over on DraftKings. Albert O, I'm not playing a chalk Albert O, man. I'm just not doing it. And very clearly making fun of tight end plays has not gone well for me so far in this show. But I'm still gonna be. Hey, you know what? That's all the sample we have. We hear low sample size. That's the only sample size we've got over here, man. It's just got ugly. At least I don't have to play Kyle Pitts again this week. But yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at the wide receiver spot in this game, it's Jerry Jeudy for me, and I don't really think I need to run it back with anybody, because I think if it would not shock me at all if this Denver team was like, we're winning 42-7.
Yeah.
Tambo, what do you want to do here?
I want to get some action here. I will say this. I want to, get thoughts. Maybe Holden, you can chime in. You're the Denver guy, but it kind of relates more to the Wilson side of things. Maybe people are forgetting this, but so the natural thing this week is to play the running backs in Denver. They're going to smash Houston, blah, blah, blah. Javonte Williams trying to figure that stuff out is a waste of time. They're still using Gordon. Just stop trying to make it happen. We all want it to happen. Williams is incredible. He beats them on all the metrics, everything. But for whatever reason, they're still mixing in Gordon. And I'll be the first to say it. I don't think Gordon looked that bad last week. He doesn't look nearly as good as Javonte Williams, but I'm saying there's a reason they're mixing him in. And if you guys want to go to the playoffs and get deep into it, you're going to want Javonte Williams to stay this healthy. I'm not saying Gordon is good or better than him. I'm saying he works for what the job required that they're trying to do, and they're trying to save him. But I will say on the passing side, the one I wanted to get your thoughts on, Holden, was remember what the situation was in Seattle. I'm already seeing people this week going Russ, Judy, Sutton lineups or whatever, but he always just keys in on one guy. Metcalf or Lockett had their own games. It was never really games where all three went off together.
Yeah.
And so I would keep that in mind when you're building. And to what Crane just said, you don't have to run it back. Like you can use Brandon Cooks or whatever and get him in there. He obviously makes sense, but you also remember this. You also don't have to plug in the cheap tight end just because you're playing him. Like if you're going Russ to Cook with Judy, just because there's a cheap tight end sitting there, you don't have to double stack him. You can just play him with Judy and run it back or don't, but everyone just sees the cheap tight end and says, why not stack it further? You don't have to do that. So just keep that in mind when you're building out your stacks. But typically he does like to just hone in on one guy and get his points that way. Once someone connects to him, he rolls with them.
Yep, Sutton's his guy. He's been using him in practice a lot. Actually checked it out. Talked to a lot of guys that are around the team too. So Sutton's the guy there. The second thing on Melvin Gordon is he's always going to be involved because in real life football, it's good. You don't want Javonte having 300 carries. So it's going to piss us off, but they don't give a shit about us.
Fantasy people can't seem to understand that. It's like they're trying to get their team
good. He's above average running back. Okay. He's fine. He's a number 2. And then the other thing is the Seahawks were stealing Russell Wilson's signs last week. So Tyler Lockett came up to me. He's like, guys, we know he's using the same hand signals. I think Wilson's going to be much more successful. The only question is how many times does he throw? That's the question.
I'm telling you, I think they just let him have an FU game after last week.
I think it's going to be a big game for him too. I really do.
All right.
And don't, sorry to cut you off, but don't forget, back to our original point we just talked about. You can use, I think for sure, you can use Javonte. If you want to go like him, Javonte and Judy or Sutton to your point, Holden, you can do it. Because then you hope that it's just going to suck again when Gordon comes in and vultures the touchdown. But if he does pass one and Javonte wants to say, too bad, Melvin, stay on the sidelines. I'm taking this 80 to the house tonight and gets in on one of those from Russell Wilson to get things cooking early on, then that could really open up the game and the back and forth of it all. And they would just rack up the points. And if Judy or Sutton, whoever you use with it, ends up being the right guy, you could have yourself a really nice stack there. So I would get plenty. I'm going to get plenty of shares of those guys mixed into my large field tournament lineups this week.
All right. Like button's great. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bottom right-hand corner. I mean, now that we hit 10K, we're just flying. We're zooming 10,500 subscribers. So that's great. Add to it. You'll get notifications every time we do shows. And boy, do we do a lot of shows here for you. If you're not a member, what are you missing out on? You're missing out on cores. All of our analysts go out there. All you got to do is fill in 3 spots. So it's a lot. It's a lot harder than it sounds, but they give you their best lineups. You get all of Big T's player pool. Everybody's playing during the week. JSU does the same thing. We got a cash chart. Hoops core was fire last week. We got these
every week.
Yeah.
Huh? Hoops core is fire. Hoops core is fire every week.
You know, he's on the Mount Rushmore, man. Of DFS. I think that's just it. He's a stud. So you get that. You get the cash chart, Mangone, 3-man max, the single entry stuff. So great stuff that we offer here. And we're still doing baseball right through October, through the playoffs. Showdown has been very successful for us over these last few years, a couple of years that we've been at RPS. Last thing at wide receiver, Alan Lazard, questionable, limited all 3 days of practice. Crane, if Lazard is active, do you play him against the Bears?
I mean, it'll be showdown, so
Isn't that a Sunday slate? Who cares?
Yeah, that's Sunday night, man.
Anyways, what do you want to do with Lazard?
I mean, if he is active, I will play him in showdown. Yes, I will. And thank God, because that means I don't have to mess with Sammy Watkins.
Yes. I always do that one time a show. And the other guy would be Justin Jefferson, since Philadelphia passed up on him. Like 200-yard spot coming in for Jefferson this week.
I know with him at this point, I don't think it matters what a team did to him. He's going to still do it to them because
he's going to murder him anyway.
Nobody can get open like that guy right now. It is absolutely incredible. Like if you watch that game last week, they tried, like they really did. And there is no way someone should be that open. That's just how skilled he is. And it's incredible to watch.
Yep. And it's not, you look at it, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, we talk about the high-end running backs. These high-end wide receivers might be shifting the balance here. But, Crane, I'll go to Kittle then. George Kittle was out last week.
Okay.
Game time decision, though. Game time decision. Shanahan said he looked awesome. It was his first practice he's had this year. Do you trust George Kittle?
I don't, because I can't trust Trey Lance right now. It's not like this is a coaching staff that's going to unleash Trey Lance and let him throw the ball even 30 times. So I look at this spot and I say, you still got to feed Debo. You still got to fade Ayuk. You still got to fade Kittle. And they're just not going to throw it that often. They don't trust Trey Lance that much. And I get it. The dude is a kid. I trust Jeff Wilson in this game at 5-1. And that's the only spot I'm going in this game. And like, look, maybe fading Debo is going to screw me. I did it last year and it screwed me last year, but Jeff Wilson's my guy. I just have a trouble trusting the low volume of this 49ers pass catching receivers. And I saw Tambo kind of give a little nod when I said fading Debo screws me. And he's like, yeah, it kind of does. So Tambo, I'll throw it to you, man.
Well, I was going to say it was more the first part you started with, like the trust in Jeff Wilson is where it's like, that's the least place I have trust. I trust that San Francisco likes to run the ball and probably will. I have way more trust. I actually have no trust in any of it, but I'm saying when you think about it, first off, Lance could just be their running back. There's that. And then you've got Debo, who is at the price people don't like, right? 7,800. You've got Jamar for 200 more, Jamar Chase. They're going to be going up to Adams. The ceiling that Debo can have here, and especially if he comes in and steals a little bit of that thunder and starts early and often, could be a big game for Debo Samuel. So, and here's the thing about Debo, because of the price, because of the position, all that, he's not going to be popular, but to me, I can treat him like a one-off because I'm basically just saying he's a running back / wide receiver at $7,800. I'll just shift him into the mix. And instead of maybe who's at running back at that same price, I'm trying to give a real life example, but instead of Alvin Kamara, who's probably not going to play, Saquon Barkley, right? Who's in a really good spot. We didn't need to talk about him here, but he's in a really good spot. He's high owned. Maybe I play Debo there and I use somebody else as a cheaper running back and just flip the script of my build in how I'm constructing my roster in that lineup. So I think he's interesting, Debo, for sure. And I definitely can never trust this Wilson guy, man. Like, it's just, there's always somebody else there. They just never, ever go. It never works.
I mean, over under 25 game minutes before Jeff Wilson gets hurt.
And that too.
And
under, okay, yeah.
He looked bad last week after Mitchell went down.
Running behind that line against the Seahawks defense. I don't care if he sucks.
Yeah.
I played worse guys than Jeff Wilson.
It's true. And hey, the other thing about him is, like, people are going to think like I am. Like, they're going to say, guy sucks. It's hard to trust. I was trying to get his current ownership projection is not that much. So maybe something to think about when we get there. I heard, today some were talking about playing Lance with Jeff Wilson and just hoping to wrap up that whole end zone, once they get down there. But at the same time, it's not guaranteed. They could still run it with Debo or throw it to Ayuk, and you don't get anything out of Wilson. So it's hard to say.
I really like Trey Lance long-term. I want to say that.
Do you guys like this game at all, though? Because that's the other thing. Are we doing it just because it's a value play, which is more, to me, always more cash related? Or do you see is Geno Smith really back? Right?
I don't think Geno Smith is back. I do think Jeff Wilson can go for 20 carries, 65 yards, and fall in the end zone twice, though.
Okay.
Like, I think that is possible. Because if they get inside the 5, sure, they might run Trey Lance, but are they going to trust him to throw it? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And I don't know what they're going to do with Kittle. I know that, like you said, Coach Shanahan said he was awesome today, but that could be like he was awesome. Good to see, like, progress, but we'll wait and see. Like, it's coming along. I don't know. It's hard to read that type of situation, so we'll have to wait and get the news.
You want a super deep sleeper at wide receiver, Tyree Cleveland.
That's not a real person. Stop it.
Yeah,
You're just making stuff up.
Yeah, I just made him up.
What's the guy you were going to tell me earlier, though, holding that tight end? You said you got
let's go to him.
Yeah.
It's ugly. It's gross. You're going to want to hold your breath. CJ Uzomah's out. I don't know if you knew he was with the Jets now, but last week, Tyler Conklin.
I saw that. You put this in our little notes, on our little pre-show note thing, and I'm like, why are we talking about the Jets?
4 for 16 to touchdown, 3 down. He's on the field every single time. You need to throw some money out there. What is he? 3,700 on DK. I'm just saying, Conklin is at least on my radar this week as a cheap guy.
He's not even minimum price.
I'll run. I was gonna say maybe I'll run a secondary stack with Nick Chubb just to go off on them, and then Tyler Conklin comes back the other way.
Yeah. Oh, he's got to get in the box, but again, 4 catches, 16 yards, a touchdown. Maybe he's more of a FanDuel play too, because they're looking at him in the red zone. But there's my guy. I think Conklin's a guy that at least is on the radar right now.
I like his first name. That might be it though.
Is that your first name?
Yes. That's the dad joke for the dad joke of the week, Holden.
Why do you hate? I just can't understand why Holden hates money. Like, what are we doing with Ty Conklin?
Yeah.
You need a cheap tight end. Why would you not play Ty Conklin?
Because I'm paying up for Mark Andrews, and I'm just going to take my 20 points and be happy.
You're going to take Mark Andrews this week?
Yeah, I'm going out on a
real
big limb.
I'll tell you that much.
Look,
you know what? When he gets
if I keep taking these expensive tight ends, eventually one of them's going to get there.
That's a good. Let's get to some defensive notes, guys. Tambo, we already talked about Waddle and Hill. I love them this week. Marcus Peters is questionable. Marlon Humphrey's going to be out. You're just up. This whole secondary is just a debacle right now. And I'm just going to circle back to the Dolphins, Tambo. Hill and Waddle. We got second string secondary this week for the Ravens.
Yeah. I said it earlier. I'm on both sides of this game. It's kind of becoming, I'm just avoiding this conversation though this week around or letting these thoughts get into my head of it's the sneaky, not sneaky game. Like everyone's starting to pick up on it, but it's because like everything you just said, look what we have in front of us here. We have the right pieces. We have some condensed offense, at least of what we'd want to use on the Miami side. So when you've got that with Lamar, you've got Andrews, who's a pay up when most are paying down. You just have things that make sense. You saw it last week. Like if you had Duvernay, great. But if you didn't, there were still ways to make things work and fit it in. So it's like, that's where you're not always going to get the 1%er right. So trying to overstack just to make that work, I'm going to avoid. You can go Lamar, Andrews, and pick one. You can go Tua, pick one, and Andrews. You can run it a few different ways. But for me, I'm definitely in on this game, regardless of what the public ends up doing. I'm going to get pieces of it for sure.
Yeah, you were talking about how like this is the sneaky game that's not really sneaky and everything. Like sometimes game environments, they end up being popular because they're just really good. And I think this is one of those spots, especially from a fantasy standpoint. Like the ball's got to be flying here. The Ravens, they're out of cornerbacks. Like Tambo just signed there. It's incredible. I cannot wait to see you play on Sunday against Tyreek Hill. Like you just play these dudes. Like this is just one of those simple spots. Like sometimes playing the best guy is just the way to go. And I think these guys, at least this week, are amongst the best guys to play.
Yeah, good point, because it's everything you just said, and the fact that no matter what we say or others say or the bubble we're in gets behind, I don't think it translates to like all of a sudden becoming the most popular spot of the week versus all those other spots we have and all these chalk plays at these other positions. So I do think that's the key, where you just look at it like, look, it's just a good spot. Even if it does get some late steam, you'll be overweight on other positions and spots in there within your lineups where you're fine anyway. So just build it in. And I like that quite a bit.
All right, so we only got one more, two more pieces of notes. The Raiders are without 3 starters this week, but 2 defensively, Denzel Perryman and Trayvon Mooring. I don't know if we got anything there. And then Shaq Leonard's out again. Damian Pierce didn't work out last week. Shaq Leonard is out again, though, Crane. I mean, anything here with one of the best run stoppers out?
No, because I'm still not playing. I said it last week that I'm just going to be fading Robinson and Etienne until one of them gets hurt. And like that's what I'm doing right here. To me, that backfield is just not something I want to mess with. I think Etienne's going to have a few week winning slates, but I'm not going to mess with him this week. I'm playing Christian Kirk in that game.
All right, Tambo.
Yeah, I'm going to play Etienne actually, just to go back to it, because everything you just said is that we have to find out when others aren't finding out. And I think this would be the spot to do it. And we already talked about Lawrence earlier. You can use him with Lawrence. He's another guy that could just I think the way he's going to break the slate when he does is like a 10-yard check down that he sneakily gets around and finds his way into the box from 60 yards out or something. And then it carries on from there. And especially what the game flow looks to set up for, I think we could see it here. And you could run Lawrence, him, and Kirk or something like that and get away with it. So I'm going to try it some this week for sure.
And he should have scored last week. He was wide open in the end zone. Lawrence overthrew him by 5 yards. And it was really incredible just how off the throw was, but he should have scored last week. So he's getting that big time usage in the red zone.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I know Robinson got the 2. Robinson getting those touchdowns is the same to me as Hunt getting the touchdowns for Cleveland. Like, it sucks. It's annoying. Or if Gordon had got them, and instead of, Javonte didn't get one either because he ended up dropping his at the 1 yard as well. But the point is, when those guys get in, I'm not going to worry about that too much. Obviously, that can happen. Obviously, it's not what I want, but it can happen. But I don't care. I'm not going to build to be scared of that going in when I build my lineup. So I'm going to build it to use Etienne and get him in with Lawrence and Kirk there for Jacksonville.
I don't
right,
hate
Jim.
the idea of being early on ATN because last week 4 targets and 4 rushing attempts. Eventually, he's going to get more action. You want to be early rather than too late because, as you said, once he starts crushing it, the public's going to be on him, and sneaky ATN time is going to be over.
Yes.
Gentlemen, good show. The news dump is done. Major League Baseball talk with me, DC, and Boynton is next. Hit the like button on your way out. Really appreciate it. If you haven't checked out Run Pure Sports or RunPureBets.com, make sure you get over there right now. For Tambo, for Crane, and Helmet behind the scenes, I'm Holden. Helmet, get us out of here, man.